The moment Caitlin Clark stepped onto that Team USA floor, everything changed, and not quietly, not subtly, not in some small, forgettable way. It changed like a storm ripping through a room full of people who thought they already had the future figured out. For months, they tried to reduce her to a debate. They tried to shrink her into a headline, into a talking point, into a rookie they could politely dismiss and strategically keep at arm's length. They said she wasn't ready. They said she hadn't earned it. They said the Olympic snub proved she still had more to learn, more to show, more to become before she could stand where the game's most protected names had stood for years. And maybe that was the safest story to tell at the time, because it protected everybody who had power. It protected the gatekeepers. It protected the hierarchy. It protected the old language of wait your turn and respect the process, and this is bigger than one player. But the second Caitlin Clark touched that court wearing Team USA colors, all of that started to collapse in real time. Because this wasn't hype meeting reality and failing under pressure. This was reality exposing how badly the narrative had been manipulated from the beginning. She didn't come in looking overwhelmed. She didn't come in trying too hard. She didn't come in forcing moments or begging for approval. She came in looking like the game had already been waiting for her. Calm. Sharp. Controlled. Ruthless in the most disciplined way. And that's what made it hit so hard. There was no panic in her game. No rush. No desperation. Just command. Every possession felt different when she was involved. The spacing changed. The energy changed. The tempo changed. The geometry of the floor changed. Suddenly defenders were pulled into uncomfortable places they didn't want to be. Suddenly the court looked wider, cleaner, more dangerous. Suddenly every teammate had more room, more options, more life. And that's what the cameras couldn't fully capture, but everyone watching could feel. The offense didn't just run with her, it breathed with her. It opened. It sharpened. It modernized. Because Caitlin Clark doesn't just play inside a system, she stretches the limits of the system until everyone around her has to evolve or get left behind. That is what makes her different, and that is exactly why so many people were uncomfortable with her rise in the first place. She doesn't simply fit into existing structures, she exposes whether those structures are still good enough. That's why the Olympic snub never sat right with so many people. It wasn't just about whether she was one of the 12 best players in a vacuum. It was about what her presence represented, what her absence revealed, and what the decision-makers were really trying to preserve. Because if this was truly just basketball, then the conversation would have looked very different from the beginning. If this was purely about impact, floor control, gravity, attention, momentum, and the future of the women's game, then the hesitation never should have lasted this long. But this was never just about basketball. It was about power. It was about image. It was about who gets to arrive and who is forced to wait outside while everyone pretends the timing simply isn't right. Caitlin Clark walked into a sport starving for larger audiences, bigger ratings, stronger visibility, and more commercial momentum, and instead of being fully embraced as a force that could help accelerate all of that, she was treated like a disruption to the comfort of the people who had already claimed ownership of the room. That's the part nobody wanted to say too loudly. Because the truth was too inconvenient. The truth was that she represented a shift so big, so immediate, and so undeniable that it made a lot of people nervous. Not because she was unqualified, but because she was too transformative too fast. Media coverage moves differently. Negotiation power moves differently. The entire ecosystem starts to bend around the one thing it can't ignore: influence. And that is exactly why her Team USA debut felt so much bigger than a simple basketball moment. It wasn't just a player returning to the floor. It was a truth finally becoming impossible to hide. Because once she started orchestrating, once the offense started flowing through her naturally, once the confidence and chemistry became visible even in the smallest details, all the old excuses started sounding weaker. The same people who had spent months acting like patience was wisdom suddenly had to confront something brutal. Maybe they weren't being cautious at all. Maybe they were just wrong. Maybe they underestimated how quickly greatness translates when it's real. Maybe they mistook disruption for immaturity. Maybe they confused popularity with overhype because admitting her actual basketball value would have forced them to reevaluate too many decisions too fast. And that's what made this debut feel explosive. Not because she dropped some cartoonish stat line or demanded the spotlight with theatrics, but because she made elite basketball look natural in her hands while everyone else was still trying to explain why she supposedly wasn't supposed to be there yet. That's humiliating for a narrative. That's devastating for a gatekeeping culture. Because once performance replaces theory, the debate dies an ugly death. Once the film starts talking, opinions start sounding cheap. Once the floor itself confirms what millions of people have been seeing for months, the room gets very quiet or very defensive. And in Caitlin Clark's case, it got both. You could feel the tension around her because she has become more than just a player in this sport. She has become a referendum, a mirror, a pressure point. Every pass she makes, every deep pull-up, every manipulation of help defense, every moment of poise under scrutiny forces people to reveal where they really stand. Are they evaluating the game honestly, or are they protecting an outdated order that can no longer survive contact with the modern spotlight? Because the second she started controlling Team USA possessions with that familiar blend of audacity and composure, the old story started bleeding out in front of everybody. The same critics who once leaned on words like too soon and not yet suddenly had to pivot into softer language, more careful praise, more strategic compliments that tried to acknowledge what was obvious without fully admitting how wrong they had been. But the audience saw it. The fans saw it. The players saw it. The bench saw it. The coaches saw it. You can fake narratives in interviews. You can dress up decisions in polite committee language. You can hide behind process and criteria and long-term planning. But you cannot fake what happens when a player changes the feel of the game the moment she steps on the floor. And Caitlin Clark changed the feel instantly. That's the kind of thing no press release can compete with. That's the kind of thing no old talking point survives. That's the kind of thing that tears holes in carefully managed politics and forces the truth into daylight. She didn't look like a marketing experiment. She didn't look like a media creation. She looked like a basketball answer to a basketball problem. And that's what hit the hardest. Because if she looks this natural, this useful, this dangerous, this connective, this stabilizing, this inevitable in a Team USA setting, then the bigger question becomes impossible to avoid. Why was there ever so much resistance to begin with? Why did it take this long for a player this clearly impactful to be treated like she belonged in these conversations? Why did so many powerful voices spend so much time trying to frame her as a complication instead of what she actually is, an accelerator, a force multiplier, a player whose mere presence changes the economics, the visibility, and the shape of the game itself? And once that question enters the room, everything becomes uncomfortable. Because now this isn't just about one debut. Now it's about accountability. Now it's about who misread the moment. Now it's about who underestimated the scale of what they were watching. Now it's about whether the institutions around women's basketball are truly prepared to handle the kind of star power that doesn't politely wait for permission before taking over the center of the conversation. And Caitlin Clark's greatest threat to the old order has never just been that she can shoot from absurd distances or throw impossible passes or ignite fan bases in every city she enters.